If you've ever struggled to count your crochet rows, you're not alone. This is one of the most common beginner questions that I get, and I know it can really feel confusing at first. In today's video, I want to show you how to easily identify those rows, plus other tips and visual cues that have really helped me, and I hope they'll help you too. Now I'm going to be focusing on single, half double, double, and trebles, but once you get an idea of what I'm talking about, you can apply it to any kind of stitch variation that you're working with. So the first point that can be really confusing for beginners is the starting chain. This does not count as a row. After you make your first row, your chain is going to look like a rope, and it's included in the first row count. And it will always look like this no matter what stitch you're making. A really important tip I have is to reserve your tail, that starting tail, when you start your project. And the reason I say that is because it helps you to see the right and wrong side of your fabric. If you're right-handed, your tail will always be on the left side when you're on the right side or the front side of your work. And when you're on the back side or the wrong side, your tail will be on the right side. And the opposite is true if you're left-handed. And just as a note, by the way, I'm not really sure why the terms are right side and wrong side. The right isn't meaning right or left, it's just meaning correct. It's the right, the correct side. And then the wrong side is just the back side. Let's start with the single crochet. Now, without getting too bogged down with the stitch anatomy, I just really want us to focus on the shape that each stitch makes. So for a single crochet, you've got the front and the back of a stitch. Here's the top. It looks like the letter V. And the front of a single crochet also looks like the letter V. Now, when you turn it over to the back of the stitch, it's really cute. It looks like a little mushroom or the pi sign. And once you can see these two shapes, it makes it really easy to count these rows. Okay, I've got my tail to help me see that I'm on the front side, the right side of my work. And the front side of a single crochet looks like the letter V. I went ahead and did it in two different colors here so you can see it with the contrast. But first, down here by the ropey area of the chain, here you can see little V's right above it. And that's your first row. And then right above it, you can see the little pi sign or the mushroom. Much easier to see here as it's separated. Here's your V, and there's your pi sign. Now, what's really interesting about single crochets is the banding effect it creates after every 2 rows made. I think you can see it pretty clearly here. Well, if you look on the back side, you can see here I'm right-handed, so my tail's on the left. If I go to the back or the wrong side, that banding is even more clear to see when you start counting your rows. See what a nice chunk it makes? That makes it really easy to count. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. I find on the front it gets a little confusing because it looks more flat and I'm looking for that chunking that happens. But again, just look for the rope of the chain, look for the V right above it, and then right above that, the mushroom. Another visual cue that really helps is to look for the little holes that are made when you're making your stitches. Because sometimes it'll look like a jumbled mess and you're just trying to figure out where is that stitch. So every time you see a little funky hole like this, you know you place a stitch there and it helps you to kind of locate it. The next step up is the half double crochet, and instead of a V, you have more of a triangle. So this is our first yarn over stitch. So here is that original V plus this little leg. Maybe a little bit easier to see here. Here's your half double crochet. There's your little V and the leg. The back of the half double crochet is interesting. It looks more ropey. It creates like a rope effect in the back. Here's your first row of half double crochets. Looks like little triangles. And right above it is kind of similar, but has a ropey effect. And you can do the same kind of thing like the single crochets. You can count your rows by 2 if you're just working with half double crochets. 2, 4, 6, 8. And now for the double crochet, we're just building on these shapes. Once you get to these taller stitches, I think it's a lot easier to see them because they create like a post. But it's still important to look a little deeper and recognize the anatomy of it. If you look here, we have this little ridge here that helps us separate and see that this is a row. And then if you really look at that stitch, we have what looks like a half double crochet. It's that little sideways triangle. But then on top, we have what looks like another V, right? That's our double crochet. So I really want you to look at this and decide for yourself what here is the easiest thing to recognize to make you see a double crochet. Could it be that it looks like 2 single crochets with a little bar in between? Or maybe it's like, oh, there's a half double crochet and a single above it. Just look at it and see what helps you recognize it. For me personally, it's this little sidebar here that really helps me to see that it's almost right in the middle of 2 stitches. Let's look here. Here again, this looks like a half double crochet, but then right above it is another stitch. The back of a double crochet is really confusing to me. I don't really pay attention to that. I just skip around looking for the front of the stitch. And why that's important is because when you move up to the treble crochet, then it looks like 3 stitches stacked on top of each other. Here again, we have a pretty distinct line to show us row 1. So 1, 2, 3, almost like 3 single crochets on top of each other. Maybe for you, those landmarks are just those 2 bands. If you see those 2 bands, then you know it's a treble crochet. And then being able to count these rows, pretty easy. Again, I just focus on what the front of it looks like. It's a lot easier for me to spot that. There's the front again. And again, the little hole where the stitch was placed helps you to figure out where that row ends and begins. So here I've been showing how to count rows, but you may be wondering about how to count rounds. And really it's pretty much the same kind of thing unless you're doing something like amigurumi. That can be pretty tricky because you're not completing every round. So your rounds are going to be a step up each time. So it's really important to start from that center round. You can see it pretty clearly. It looks like a little circle. And then if you're right-handed, you'll stick to counting the rounds on the right side. And then in the opposite way, if you're left-handed, you'll count all of your rounds from the left side. That's because you've gone all the way around and completed it, and you'll have a very distinct banding effect to help you count those rounds. Now, if you're watching this and you still can't see those rows, that's totally okay. What I would highly recommend you do for yourself is make yourself a little swatch like this. It doesn't take any time at all. Take a photograph of it with your phone and then just mark it up. Trace the shape that that stitch makes. If you're struggling with seeing your rows, keep a stitch marker nearby and just keep placing it in the row after row until your brain gets it. I'm going to say it again. It's really a case of creating a shape for yourself that you can easily recognize. I really hope these tips helped. Keep using those row counters. If you haven't got one, they're really useful. Don't think of them as a crutch. Think of them as an aid, but also do practice looking at these shapes, and I promise you it's all going to click. And I highly recommend that you watch this video next if you haven't seen it. I answer a lot of the most common beginner questions that I've received, and hopefully that will keep you inspired on your crochet journey. If you have any questions or video requests, just pop them in the comments. That's how these videos are born. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.